Okay, this is just going to be a quick video about how to get the metadata from images that are posted on sites like Civitai, how you can use the generation data from those images to potentially make images like those of your own, and how it's not always as straightforward as just copying the information and putting it into your system to generate that image. Sometimes there can be issues where the metadata doesn't exist, they didn't put all the metadata in the information, or you just can't copy what they did because they used a workflow in Comfy UI that you don't have access to, or the exact image can't be copied because the settings of your system are different than the settings of their system, regardless of the prompt settings. Like their installation is a different version. Multiple things can cause issues there. If you're new to AI art and you've ever been looking through Civitai and found an image that you think is cool and you want to replicate that image, for instance, like this image here, you'll click on the image and you'll see something like this, right? You'll have information about the image, and then you can scroll down and you can see something like this. It's got resources used, the checkpoint that was used for it, and any LoRa's that may have been used for it, and then the prompt, negative prompt, and then some other information about how the setup for their settings was. Now, the information will not always all be here. When you post a photo like this, you can choose how much information you put on this informational packet here, as well as in some cases, depending on how they generated the image, it may not be there. Like that information may not exist, or it may be overly complicated, or have a bunch of extra tools that are not as straightforward as just the information that's there. So there are two ways to get an image into your generation software. You could hit this thing right here that says copy all, and that's going to copy as much of this information as it can. And then you can go back to whatever system you're using and then right click and paste. And you'll have a bunch of stuff in this top panel. So when you paste the information in here, you're not done yet. You need to go over here and click this blue square with the arrow. When you click this, it'll propagate all this information into your settings. Okay, now see, it's got the prompt here, the negative prompt here, the sampling method, sampling steps, the high-res fix settings, it's got the high-res fix settings, the width and height of the thing, CFG scale, and the seed, and then some override settings that may or may not be available in your current UI. Now, here is the biggest caveat to all of these things. The biggest caveat to this is it is likely that you will not be able to copy someone's picture no matter what settings you have, because there are so many moving pieces about like what version of software you're running, what version of what type of video card you have, all kinds of things that will affect the output of your image. So for instance, I have the seed in, I have all of these settings. I'm going to hit generate. Okay, so now that I've generated this image, we're going to look closely at this image. We can see that it is pretty similar to this image, but it is not the same. You know, the horns are similar, the armor is similar, the symbol is similar, but you can see that like the total image is different. The horns are slightly different, the symbol is slightly different. There's red glowing eyes in this one. That's because even though I'm the one that made this image and posted it, I made this with Automatic 1111 and I made this with Forge UI. Even though they have the exact same settings, there are different components in each of those installations that are slightly skewing the results. This means that theoretically, if I were to use the exact same software that had not been updated or changed at all, I could get the exact same image. But the likelihood that you and some person who posted an image on Civitai have the same exact settings, all of the things the same, is basically zero. So you're never going to get, or never expect to get, the exact copy of an image. You can get close. Sometimes you can get indistinguishable but it's probably not actually the same. If you find an image like this and you're not sure what you need to do, first thing you need to do is look, if you want to try to copy the image, the first thing you want to do is look at the resources used. So you're going to look at the checkpoint and any LoRa's that are there. And in order to make a copy of that image, you need to get those resources. You would go to the checkpoint page and the LoRa page, and you would download the checkpoint, and then you would download the LoRa. Okay, here's an example of an image that someone posted, and there's not information right here. Here is the second way, or another way to potentially get information about an image that exists on Civitai. If someone posts an image on Civitai and the metadata is in that image, you may be able to get the information from that image, even if there isn't information over here where it says, you know, copy all or whatever, right? It's just here's an image, but there's no information over here about the actual image, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the image, and I'm going to need my Forge UI open to be able to do this. So I can drag this into the Stable Diffusion window. So I already have my Stable Diffusion window open and ready. I'm going to click on the image so I can pull it away. So I'm basically dragging this image into the Stable Diffusion tab, and then I'm hovering over the prompt area, and then I'm letting go. See how all that text just appeared? That is essentially the image's metadata getting put into this window. And just like before, I'm going to click this square box, and then it's going to propagate the information. So I theoretically could try to produce this image. Now, it's potentially going to be harder because if they had used a LoRa, it might just be a name in this thing, right? Instead of the actual LoRa, I can't see to download it. Now, it does say they use the Juggernaut XL checkpoint, but if they had used LoRa's, it might not be listed here. If it was listed in here, like there was obvious sign that there was a LoRa in here somewhere, you know, like if it looked something, if it had something like this in it that I wasn't sure, like, oh, I don't know what this is, then that may be just impossible to find, right? If they use their own custom LoRa that they don't have posted anywhere or something like that, then you might just be out of luck, right? But that is something you can do. Another thing you can do is, instead of dragging the image, you could just save the image to your, like download the image or save it. That generally will work as well, but obviously just dragging it in there when it's open is easier to do. Okay, another type of image you might find on Civitai is something like this. You can see over here we've got information where it says the generation data is here, but it doesn't have any prompt information, but it does have some like checkpoint or some LoRa's information. But then above that in the process, it talks about tools, comfy UI, techniques, text to image, inpainting. So this information, again, is not 100% reliable, but generally speaking, if it says something like this, they probably made it in comfy UI. And if they made it in comfy UI and there isn't metadata on the image, because there might be metadata on the image. So in this case, there is metadata on the image. So if you have comfy UI installed and are able to or ready to use comfy UI, it may be possible to do what I just did with this image where I drug it into Forge UI. You may be able to drag it into your comfy UI setup and see if that works. Okay, so just as an example, I'm going to show you what it looks like if you drag an image into comfy UI, and it's a comfy UI image, but it doesn't have the comfy UI metadata on it. So I'm going to grab this image and I'm going to drag it into my comfy UI workflow. And you can say it says unable to find workflow and final image, right? So that means it doesn't have a workflow in its metadata. But if I instead go to this image here and I drag it into my comfy UI, you see I get a bunch of information about missing nodes, which I'm not going to worry about because I don't really care about trying to copy this image. I'm just showing this as an example of what it would look like. It gives you the workflow approximately, right? Like, so there's information about their system, like what they were doing, how they were making it work, a bunch of other things in here that, like, you have to know quite a bit about comfy UI before you can even kind of start to delve into this. But essentially, that is the way to do it if you were using comfy UI. Thanks for watching. It'd be really cool if you liked and subscribed. It helps a lot with discoverability. Thank you.